Most people live their lives chasing approval. They want to be liked, respected, admired, and validated by others. They buy things they don't need to impress people they don't even like. They take jobs they hate because society tells them it's prestigious. They spend their energy building an image, not a reality. The irony is, the more you chase external validation, the less of it you receive. People sense desperation. They respect independence, not dependence. And that's why self-mastery is the key to becoming free. Self-mastery means being able to sit with yourself and feel whole without applause. It's the ability to know your own worth without checking if someone else agrees. The man who has mastered himself doesn't look around to see who is watching before he acts. He acts because it is aligned with who he is. His life is driven by inner principles, not outside noise. This doesn't mean he ignores feedback or lives in arrogance. It means his compass is internal, not external. Consider how fragile validation is. Today, people may praise you. Tomorrow, they may criticize you. If your happiness depends on them, you will live in constant anxiety. One wrong word, one bad review, one rejection, and your self-image collapses. That is not strength. That is slavery. True strength is when you know, deep in your bones, that you are fine regardless of applause or criticism. You neither rise nor fall with the opinion of the crowd. You remain steady, like a mountain in a storm. Self-mastery requires discipline. It means saying no when your impulses scream yes. It means controlling your emotions instead of being controlled by them. Anger, greed, envy, these are chains. If someone else can trigger you at will, they own you. If you cannot resist temptation, you are not free. The man who has mastered himself may still feel anger, desire, or fear, but he does not act on them blindly. He pauses, he chooses, he owns his response, and that choice makes him powerful. When you stop chasing validation, people start to respect you. It's paradoxical. The man who desperately tries to prove himself is never seen as strong. But the man who is indifferent to approval radiates confidence. Why? Because independence is magnetic. Humans evolved to admire those who don't need the tribe's approval for survival. We sense self-reliance as a form of strength. This is why the quiet man in the room often feels more powerful than the one boasting loudly. Silence communicates confidence, while noise reveals insecurity. Look at how people spend money. Many don't buy a car for transportation. They buy it for status. They don't wear clothes for comfort. They wear them for signaling. But signaling is a game with no end. Buy one luxury item, and soon it feels normal. Then you need the next one. It's a treadmill powered by insecurity. The man who has mastered himself doesn't need to broadcast his worth. His worth is lived, not displayed. He invests in his mind, his skills, his relationships, his health, things that can't be taken away when trends change. The truth is, nobody is thinking about you as much as you think they are. Everyone is trapped in their own minds, worrying about their own image. When you realize this, a huge burden lifts. You don't have to impress anyone. You only have to live in a way that you respect yourself. At the end of the day, you are the one who has to live with your choices. The crowd comes and goes. Your own conscience stays with you forever. Self-mastery also brings peace. Imagine the freedom of not reacting to every insult, not needing constant praise, not being addicted to likes, followers, or applause. You wake up, you live your life, and you go to sleep content, regardless of what the world says. That is true alpha energy, not the loud performance, but the quiet independence. The ultimate test of mastery is solitude. Can you be alone without feeling lonely? Can you sit with your own thoughts and feel complete? Most people cannot. They need constant distraction, constant validation. But if you can enjoy your own company, then you are whole. Then you no longer chase. And when you no longer chase, life starts to come to you naturally. In the end, self-mastery over external validation is about reclaiming your freedom. It is about no longer being a puppet pulled by invisible strings of approval. It is about standing on your own feet, guided by your own values, indifferent to the cheers or boos of the crowd. The man who achieves this doesn't need to call himself alpha, he simply is. Responsibility is often seen as a burden. People think of it as extra weight, more obligations, less freedom, but in truth, responsibility is the source of power. The moment you take responsibility for your life, you gain agency. You stop waiting for someone else to save you, and you realize you are the author of your own story. This shift from blame to ownership is the foundation of strength. When something goes wrong, most people look outward. They blame circumstances, society, bad luck, or other people. It feels easier to point the finger than to face the mirror, but the problem with blame is that it keeps you powerless. If the fault is always external, then so is the solution. You are left waiting for the world to change before your life can improve. That is a weak position to live from. True freedom begins when you flip the frame and ask, what part of this is my responsibility? Even if the situation is not entirely your fault, it is still your responsibility to decide how you respond. Think about it. If someone insults you and you lash out in anger, who controls you? Not you. The other person does. They push a button and you react. You are a puppet tied to their strings. But if you pause, breathe, and choose not to be moved, you reclaim your power. Responsibility means recognizing that while you can't control the outside world, you can always control your reactions. This realization alone can change your life. Most people underestimate how much of their situation is within their influence. If your finances are a mess, it is your responsibility to learn about money, to budget, to invest, to create value. If your body is weak or unhealthy, it is your responsibility to eat better, move more, and take care of your health. If your relationships are failing, it is your responsibility to communicate honestly, to listen, to improve yourself so you can attract better people. The moment you take responsibility, problems become solvable. Without it, they remain excuses. There is also a hidden beauty in responsibility. It makes you trustworthy. People naturally gravitate toward those who own their outcomes. Imagine working with someone who blames others whenever things go wrong. Nobody respects that. But if you're the one who says, "This happened on my watch, and here's how I'll fix it," people see you as a leader. They feel safe with you. They know you won't run from reality. Responsibility builds credibility, and credibility builds influence. That is how responsibility transforms into power in the eyes of others. Taking responsibility also makes life simpler. When you believe that the world owes you something, you are constantly disappointed. You wait for fairness, for recognition, for luck. But when you accept that no one is coming to rescue you, your focus shifts inward. You stop wishing and start working. Life becomes about what you can do, not about what others should have done. That clarity eliminates resentment and replaces it with action. Of course, responsibility is not the same as guilt. You don't need to beat yourself up for every mistake. Responsibility is not about self-punishment. It is about self-empowerment. It is the mindset that says, even if this was not my fault, it is still my problem to solve. That shift moves you from victim to creator. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" you ask, "What can I do with this?" The first question keeps you stuck. The second moves you forward. Think of the most successful people you admire. They are not the ones who complain the loudest. They are the ones who take ownership. Entrepreneurs who build companies don't wait for perfect conditions. They take responsibility for creating opportunities. Leaders who inspire don't blame the crowd. They take responsibility for showing the way. Even in personal growth, those who thrive are the ones who stop blaming parents, society, or luck, and start taking ownership of their choices today. Responsibility is the bridge between intention and results. The truth is, responsibility is freedom disguised as duty. It may look heavy from the outside, but once you carry it, you realize it makes you lighter, because when you own your life fully, nothing can truly control you. No matter what happens, you have the power to decide to act, to change. That is real strength. Responsibility is not the weight of chains. It is the key that unlocks the door to power. In the end, the man who embraces responsibility never needs to call himself alpha. He doesn't need to announce his strength. His life speaks for him. He is steady because he knows he is in charge of himself. He is respected because he owns his actions. He is free because he no longer waits for permission or luck. Responsibility is his superpower, and through it he commands not others, but himself, and that is the highest power there is. Most people think leadership means being in charge, giving orders, and standing at the top of the hierarchy. They imagine an alpha as someone who dominates, who commands obedience, who forces others to follow. But that kind of leadership is shallow and fragile. It lasts only as long as fear lasts. The moment the fear disappears, the followers vanish too. Real leadership doesn't come from shouting louder or standing taller. It comes from serving. True leaders are not those who demand authority, but those who earn it by lifting others. Leadership through service begins with humility. A true leader understands that he is not above the group. He is part of it. His role is not to exploit others, but to create value for them. People follow him not because they are forced, but because they want to. They sense that he is not acting for his own ego, but for something larger. This makes his influence sustainable because it is built on trust, not coercion. Service does not mean weakness. It is not submission. It is strength applied outward. A leader who serves is not a servant. He is a creator. He creates opportunities for others. He protects the group. He carries burdens that others cannot. This requires more courage, not less. Anyone can bark orders. Few can shoulder responsibility for the well-being of others. That is why service, paradoxically, is the highest form of leadership. Think about the leaders who leave lasting legacies. They are rarely the ones who enriched themselves at the expense of others. They are the ones who gave more than they took. Entrepreneurs who build companies that outlast them do it by creating value for customers, employees, and society. Teachers who inspire generations do it by giving knowledge freely. Even in families, the true leader is not the one who demands respect, but the one who quietly provides, supports, and sacrifices. People remember service, not dominance. Leadership through service also scales naturally. When you try to lead by force, your reach is limited. You can only control those within your immediate power. But when you lead through service, your influence spreads effortlessly. Others talk about you, admire you, and emulate you. You inspire people you may never even meet. Why? Because service creates trust, and trust travels further than commands. A servant, leader does not have to convince people to follow him. People volunteer to. Service also aligns with nature. Look at the most stable systems in the world. They are symbiotic, not parasitic. Trees provide oxygen, the sun provides energy, rivers provide water. They do not demand anything in return, yet life orients itself around them. Likewise, a true leader becomes indispensable not by demanding loyalty, but by giving freely. His presence creates growth around him. People feel safer, stronger, and more capable when he is there. That is why they follow. At its core, service-based leadership is about responsibility beyond the self. The alpha male who serves does not ask, "What can I get?" but "What can I give?" He does not see leadership as a throne to sit on, but as a duty to carry. He leads not because he wants to be admired, but because he cannot imagine abandoning those who depend on him. This attitude transforms him into a pillar. Others naturally gather around pillars because they know the foundation will hold. Of course, this kind of leadership is rare because it requires the ego to step aside. Many people want the recognition of leadership without the burden of it. They want the title, not the work. But when someone consistently shows up, consistently delivers, consistently puts the mission and the people first, he cannot be ignored. Over time, people follow not because they were told to, but because they trust him. Authority that is demanded is fragile. Authority that is earned is unshakable. Leadership through service also creates inner peace. The man who leads by force must always maintain control. He lives in paranoia, afraid of losing power. But the man who leads by service never worries. Even if his formal authority disappears, his influence remains, because people remember his contribution. His legacy is not built on fear, but on gratitude. And gratitude lasts far longer than obedience. The paradox of leadership is that the less you seek it, the more it finds you. The man who tries desperately to be seen as a leader rarely is, but the man who quietly builds, helps, and uplifts others cannot help but become one. People recognize genuine value. They instinctively know who makes their lives better, and they follow them. In the end, leadership through service is the purest form of strength. It doesn't shout, it doesn't dominate, it doesn't threaten. It simply gives, protects, and builds, and because it gives, it receives loyalty. Because it protects, it earns respect. Because it builds, it lasts. A true alpha doesn't need to announce himself. He serves, and through that service, he leads.